the Quest 2 got an insane new upgrade, because this is the first time ever that a software update actually is capable of increasing the performance of your headset. Now normally, the Quest OS dynamically adjusts its GPU performances given to the apps that you use, so that you don't waste any battery. But in the latest software update, Meta increased the maximum frequency from 490 Hz to 525. The best part being that this appears to be an automatic update applied to all headsets, and you won't need to download a full new system update to actually use this feature. Another big plus is that no developer integration is required, although developers could leverage it to get some extra power required for their games. One example is Red Matter 2, which utilized this to deliver noticeable high resolutions. The only bizarre thing is for your Quest 2 to use this boost, you have to take off your headset and then put it back on again after launching each app. But this odd requirement is set to be dropped in the V49 update. But do keep in mind that V47 only released earlier this month, so although V49 can be months away, it is not uncommon for Meta to skip some numbers. And on that note, Quest 2 is now also in its final year of its 3-year lifespan, with the Quest 3 hopefully coming out in a couple of months. But besides this insane news, we also got something bad, because the VR industry leader, known as John Carmack, is completely quitting Meta, even quoting it himself as the end of his decade in VR. Now, if you've been around in VR for long enough, you definitely know John Carmack, because he's the legendary programmer and one of the key players when Meta was first named Oculus. But he now announced that he is completely leaving after trying to push the change at the highest level of the company. And we know Carmack to not be short on words, because outside of bringing the industry expertise to the Oculus in 2013, he was always very open about his opinion of the virtual reality future, even after Facebook bought up Oculus and renamed it Meta. And the reason why this is such a big deal for virtual reality is because Carmack gave the consumers insight of the world of VR behind closed doors. But the main reason for his leave is stated as follows. He mentioned that the company's VR efforts were developing at only half the effectiveness that would make him happy. So although it is sad to see him leave, I do hope that Meta takes note of this problem and then change it for the better. But in some other crazy news, is the startup behind the ambitious Halfdive headset is now launching their new Kickstarter for VR haptic gloves. Now last year, the company known as Diver X, which is a Japanese-based startup, launched the idea for a VR headset that was based on the Sword Art Online anime, where in contrast to other VR headsets, the user was completely laying down, getting stimulation from the outside like wind and haptic feedback. But although the concept looked completely insane, it quickly became clear that they could not pull it off, and eventually never got to produce the real headset. But they didn't give up, because they are back, and this time with a pair of VR gloves that even incorporates a membrane capable of flexing and compressing to replicate the sense of touch. Now, the original Halfdive headset campaign on Kickstarter managed to secure enough cash to be considered fully funded. And although the team decided to cancel the campaign, it did return all the funds to its backers. So in the end, the Sword Art Online inspired headset was deemed too niche of a product to deliver on such a small scale. But that does not count for their new product that they now named the Contact Glove. Because it doesn't just track each finger individually, it also allows for button input emulation so that you never have to pick up a controller during gameplay. But ultimately, its pro feature on the higher end models boosts haptic feedback thanks to a flexible membrane to replicate that touch feeling on the user's fingertips. In contrast with SAO, these gloves are similar to something we see in Ready Player One. Another important detail is that the glove controllers are natively compatible with Steam VR, providing a mounting adapter for both the Thunder trackers as well as Vive trackers. And taking it up another level is that their Kickstarter is already fully funded, blasting past the original funding goal at record times. But do keep in mind that this company did have some problems before, and once again, it almost sounds too good to be true. So personally, I am very hesitant on how this project evolves. But another player, known as HTC, revealed their first images of its upcoming mixed reality headset, directly aiming to compete with Meta themselves, because HTC unveiled their first official images of the headset it's been teasing over the past few months, because the company is also looking to re-enter the consumer XR space, now with their small, light, all-in-one headset that promises full-featured virtual and augmented reality. But HTC Vive has been struggling for the past 2 years, with their recent releases of the Vive Flow and the Focus 3 selling way below expected. And this new headset is most likely also to be more expensive than the Quest 2. But we did get some details about its features. First of all, it will have color pass-through mixed reality, making it more similar to the Quest Pro as opposed to a see-through AR HoloLens. It is also said to have depth sensors, which in theory could offer a more accurate room mapping, with their main focus on making it as light and comfortable as possible. And although there are some big mysteries to unveil, it is certain that HTC has to step up their game if they want to keep up with Meta. And talking about big other companies, is that Microsoft finally teased their HoloLens 3, but also noted that it is not coming yet. Their previous headset, known as the HoloLens 2, shipped all the way back in 2019, which was 3 years after the original launch. And back in February, we got the report that the HoloLens 3 was completely cancelled due to confusion and strategic uncertainties, mainly with a big problem in their partnership with Samsung. This partnership ended so bad that Samsung is reportedly going ahead with its own headset separate from Microsoft. But it turns out that they did not give up on the project, because Scott Evans, which is the new boss in the mixed reality department, announced that they are improving all core hardware technologies, from the display, tracking, sensors, and the battery life, but that they are just looking for the right design point to make a meaningful update. And in the meantime, they are pushing forward their lucrative HoloLens IVIS, which is a heavy modified variant of the HoloLens 2 that is used by the US Army, and this contract is worth up to $21 billion. However, it has been plagued with poor performance reviews, and the device apparently struggles to handle the harsh real-world conditions needed for military use. So it is interesting to see that even with all these problems, Microsoft is still trying to push augmented reality. That gets us to the VR game news. One of the VR longest running fishing games finally gets a huge update, including multiplayer mode. And this is the game known as Bait, which got released all the way back in 2016. And although only having received its last update in the year it got released, it is still around and kicking on the Quest. And now, 7 years later, developers at Resolution Games are releasing a major content update, adding a multiplayer mode. So now you can sit back and reel them in with up to 4 other players for either tournament fishing or just some casual fun. Or you can hang out with 12 others at the Caster's Cove in what the studio calls a tinyverse, sort of a metaverse in a tinier version, because in it you can interact with each other, play mini games, and just have a chance to hang out with other players. But you can also do some other social activities, from RC boat races, skipping stones along the beach, or paddling around in inflatable floaties, and much more. But Bait wasn't the only game that got an update, because the dungeon board game known as Demio gets a PvP mode. Now most likely, if you own a Quest 2, you have heard of the game Demio, especially if you're a Dungeons and Dragons fan, because this is a tabletop VR experience where you can team up with your 4 friends to take on these very difficult dungeons. And after popular demand, the game now will soon allow players to fight against each other, which the studio is calling Demio Battles. And on top of that, they released their 5th and final chapter as a free update called The Reign of Madness. And in it, it brings new levels, enemies, and playable characters. And thanks to these meaty free updates since it released, the studio is actually planning to increase the game price from $30 to $40. So if you didn't get your hands on this game or are looking to buy it in the near future, this is the best time to do it, because this price increase will already take place next month. But we got even more crazy Quest 2 news, so make sure you don't miss that by checking out the video you see on screen right now. And of course, stay awesome.